a captive captain, and a brave imbiber. This week on the Hapless Heroes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hapless Heroes podcast. I'm Francesco, and tonight I am your host and DM as we continue what I'm hoping is your anxious anticipation of what the heck is about to happen. Before we find that out, we're going to introduce the cast. Starting in my virtual left, we have Dave as Zero Valen's Avatar of War.
Good evening.
Mike as Lord and Captain Quinn Southwind.
I'm still here.
Nicola's Boris the Butcher.
What was in that flask?
Phil as Hedrick the Entertainer.
Thirsty for action.
And John as Lord Jarrell the Light.
That monster can't get what it wants.
Yeah, so speaking of monsters getting what they wanted, but not necessarily what they needed, there was some tense negotiations with the visage of Ebenezer last week. And you guys, after lots of debate and stipulations and threats and spooky moments, you have Tessa Southwind, who was captive of Ebenezer, who he was threatening to steal whatever power she contained within to do whatever things he wanted to do. And Quinn instead offered himself up rather than his flask or any other, power, to serve Ebenezer. But Ebenezer immediately began searching for Quinn's flask that contains this magical mystery birthright liquid that he and his kin have imbibed for however long, of unknown power. Instead, that happened to be in the captain's jacket that Boris stole from the captain's quarters, and she proceeded to drink the entire thing. So we're going to open back up to that because I'm going to start by saying that as soon as you chug it down, you hear Ebenezer, he looks over and shouts, "No!"
No. So he knows where I am, even though I'm super hidden at this point.
You were super hidden. A massive column of water shoots forth from your mouth. Just shoots its way upward. We're talking this thing is creating a small water spout.
Do I have control over my neck, or is it just
you have no control, and your head is pointed straight up, and this water begins to swirl angrily and violently as it creates this massive vortex now that begins to engulf your ship and Ebenezer's. And now everyone, now everyone is just jogged around and is lifted, as you are now all just suspended in this elemental vortex of water. And
I'm standing at the bottom of.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, kind of. It's hard to tell because at this point now, it gets to a point where the water stops spewing from you and now just engulfs everything. You're all having a hard time breathing, for those of you who need to do that. I'm looking at you, Zero, who does not need to do any of that. And so, Zero, you can see that in this chaotic vortex, only these two ships have been lifted, and you can barely see anything besides at this point just water. and these, and like the people like all floating up and like being whipped around, and it gets to a point though where like in this chaos, the only people remaining that you can see that are still floating is like, because like now it's almost like it's doing that swirl where it's like you can't tell if you're spinning so fast that everything looks like it's moving slowly, or if everything is almost felt like it just crawled to a halt. It still feels violent and chaotic. You could hear the rushing of water all around you, but you're like staring and you can see just your party members. Quinn, who is no longer in a rack, and Tessa. No sign of Ebenezer. His ship is there. No sign of Ebenezer. No sign of anyone else. Just your ship, his ship, and your party, and Tessa. And after what feels like almost, an eternity, which is, it's probably even just like a minute, this vortex all of a sudden like stops swirling, and just the water just crashes down. Now everyone is just soaked. And Quinn and Tessa are on board the deck of the like strange ghost vessel that's intact, and the rest of you are kind of prone aboard the deck of the Overstar. And surrounding you is endless ocean. There is no sun here, but somehow it's bright. It's almost like this pale blue hue over everything. And if you look, and the water is just endlessly deep. Boris, you feel fucking awful. You feel like you were just like hit by a bus. Your insides are you're heaving. You're just you put something in your body that did not belong in there.
Did I manage to hang on to the flask through this process? I would have been trying to.
Yes, and then you can see as everyone kind of like picks themselves back up, right? I'm assuming as everyone kind of like getting to their feet.
Yep. I mean, I'm assuming I'm probably on my like knees if I'm heaving that hard, but
yeah, most of you are on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
0 is to his feet. Yes.
Yeah, it is silent and calm. No sign of ghost ships, no sign of Ardwall, no sign of anything. Just endless ocean.
Jarrell's first action would be to try to get a rope or something that Quinn could get back to our ship with.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they are kind of spread apart a little bit.
I use my batarang and I grab Tessa. I'm just kidding.
Your batarang.
Like, how far away is their ship from us?
A couple 100 feet.
Okay. So, would Jarrell be able to like tie a rope to a javelin? How far can I throw those?
Not that far. Also, I mean, aboard the other ship is are two captains.
How far is Boris from like the front of the ship where Quinn would normally do his like finger waggling ship driving?
That is the back of the ship, and you are at the opposite side. You're towards the front of the ship.
Quinn tests out whether or not he can quote drive this ghost ship.
Before you do that, you kind of pick yourself up to your feet, and like Tessa picks herself up to hers, and she looks at you and she just says, "Oh, got out of that one, didn't we? Where are we? What just happened?" And she like looks around and she like sniffs the air. She says, "Something feel familiar to you about this place? I feel like I've been here before. But I know I haven't been here before."
Hmm.
Are we dead?
I hope not. Does Quinn feel the same thing?
The same what? Like
Same
he's been here
feeling? Like, is
before?
he relating to this? Yeah.
Do you remember that day I told you it was like clear skies in your mind when you were sailing at sea? You felt like connected, like your mind was in two places at once.
So this is that feeling. This is
This
what
is
I
that
felt.
feeling. This is
Yeah.
this is what you felt.
So it's okay.
There's a few moments where like everyone's kind of getting their bearings and just kind of taking in their surroundings, and all of a sudden, like kind of at the edge of the horizon, ahead of both of your ships, the water starts to swell like massively. You see this big like almost like orb like swell, like just huge, like it's like almost like a tidal wave is growing, right? And after a few moments, like this massive figure just like bursts from the water. It has this like dark blue, almost like skin, but it looks like very smooth. It has to be. I mean, this thing has to be towering hundreds of feet tall. You can only see its top half, from like torso to head. 2 arms, human-like face, and it's where it has like but its hair is made of like kelp and like other like like in coral and things like that. It's pulled back, and it's wearing these like golden bangles on its arms, and it's almost kind of looks like if like the genie from Aladdin was made of like sea stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it emerges from the seas. It takes in this deep breath. It takes this and it exhales, and you feel just this like blast of wind, carry across the decks of your ships. And it speaks. It says, "My kin, how good it is that you have made it to my realm. I am Caesar Southwind,
Am I
Lord
Percy Jackson? This is exciting.
of this plane." And he looks down at your 2 ships, which are like, rocking in the waves. And he says, "You have done what all other Southwinds could not. You have harnessed the deepest powers of the wind and the seas. And I have rescued you, intervened. However, I feel a sickness in this realm. Something else is here that does not belong. And you see, like, even just like it like almost like heaving with breaths, like it's blasting these like like gusts of wind over your ships. And Tessa's just like, "Oh my, so it all is true. Quinn, this is where our power comes from. The power of the sea, the winds. It lies in our blood. The water we drank was from the seas of this plane. And Caesar continues. You, and he points at Boris, you have something that doesn't belong to you. And you see him like kind of raise like a hand up in the air, and then more water just like rushes forth from your mouth, right? You see it like fire up into the sky, and then as it falls, like the flask is kind of like out next to you. It just all lands right inside the tiny little spout of the flask. You see it all just like swirling up and sucks back into the flask.
So wait, is Boris vomit in my flask right now?
No, I mean, well, maybe.
It's been filtered. The
Gross.
chunks have been
Technically,
removed.
also,
It's more like this magical water essence has been forcibly removed from inside Boris and placed back in your flask.
Great.
Boris reaches out respectfully, not in a snatchy way, but like gingerly picks the flask back up and puts it back in the captain's coat pocket
Yes.
and just kind of nods at the sea
Gigantic
creature.
creature.
In front of her. Okay, am I feeling better now? Like, do I feel less like I'm about to keel over and die?
Yes, you feel. I mean,
Not
it
great,
still
but better.
hurts. It still hurts. Yeah, but better.
So I just kind of nod to the sea god and like slink backwards, like just kind of take a few steps back.
He continues. He says, "You have arrived at the union, the juncture between the planes of elemental air and elemental water. My domain. Here, I share space with the great Lord Westwind and the great Lord Eastwind. And of course, you cannot forget Northwind. We have spread our kin all across the material plane to harness the powers of the seas and the winds to help create some balance in the realms in which they occupy, even if they know not how they do it. However, I've brought you here, well, because you kind of used the power to do it. However, I sense, looking at, like, everything around you, you were kind of in the middle of something. Ah! And he winces again, like, something is here that does not belong. Quickly, kid, do you have questions for me? I must understand what the nature of this intrusion is.
The boat's
Is there anything
plastic
else with
50
you
feet
down
away.
there?
I missed what you said, John. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna use divine sense, but the boat's too far away.
Hedrick
Right.
I feel like Quinn has lots of questions that, like, I don't think he's got the time or the ability to, like, get through.
Hedrick's going to speak into his amplifier and say, Captain, maybe you should at least tell him what's going on. The disturbances on the material plane and the fluctuations of magic happening. Mr. Czar, Sir, Southwind, things are amiss all over the planes of existence at this point. I've never been here, but if you're feeling mighty sick, somehow it's got to be connected to what's going on.
Do tell. And I'm sure you recount,
A great evil was trying to capture our fair captain's lifeblood, if you will. Holding his kin there as captive, I'm sure you can understand the dire actions of our young rogue baroness here.
Boris waves, like very sickly.
Ah, yes. A great many, how should I put this, budding villainous types have all tried to claim the power of this plane before. That's why I ensure that I only entrust it to the most powerful of my lineage. However, no doubt they covet this power because it allows you to bridge the plane of vortex. As you see before you, you no longer inhabit the material plane at this very moment. You have transcended planes, my dear friends. This power could be used for great evil, I'm sure. What evil sought this out?
Do you tell him, Quinn? You're gonna make Hedrick tell him?
Yeah, I want to speak for you. I mean, this is
Well, I
your
mean,
thing.
he's got the thing, but yeah, I mean, like Ebenezer.
Ebenezer. Pray tell, I have kin and enemies in many different planes of existence. Tell me, what does this Ebenezer seek? What is he doing?
He seeks the power of the sea.
In
He
order
wants
to
the power
defeat-
that Vecna. Mhm.
Oh,
Well, so he says.
it is a great folly to meddle in the affairs of the outer planes. Those are powers that are larger than even you and I. I simply make the wind and the seas operate in harmony. That is my only purpose. I care not about the affairs of the gods. But if this evil seeks to take on another evil, it does tend to potentially pose an issue when it comes to the sanctity and stability of all the other planes. And yes, that could probably explain why I'm feeling a little a bit ill at this moment.
When did you first have feelings of this sickness?
I mean, I don't know what you mean by when, as I'm not sure how time operates for you mortals.
Do you believe your other wind entities have felt the same thing?
I'll call it a recent development. I haven't really joined with the northwest or east winds in quite some time. I, have my own matters and realms to attend to.
You cannot deny the connection between interplanar disturbances and the vast ramifications. Certainly, if you feel something amongst this entire realm, that is a supernatural effect that must be addressed.
You are correct, small one. It is significant.
We believe there is an evil presence growing. The material plane has been infested with a, we'll call it a virus, an evil sense that is plaguing the land. And it is not only consuming material, but also arcane nature and power.
Ah, yes, necromancy. A most foul tool. Disrupts the order of things, if you believe in fate and all that. Again, I have a simpler purpose, however, a powerful one at that. I can try to provide you some aid here, but, well, I don't know what more I can offer you. You may have to, in fact, I would implore you to maybe potentially even stop whatever's happening here, disrupting this plane. I can bestow upon you great gifts. However, the methods of which you approach these issues will be entirely up to you. But, I have my limits.
What say our fair captains? Hiya, Tessa.
Quinn Quinn actually humbly turns to Tessa. She is the Sea Lord. She is the one that we potentially need to follow in order to go back to the material plane and be successful.
She says, we have to get back to our people. I have to get back to my people. There's still an attack. I don't know what happened to everything else. Why were the only ones who were transported here? And she looks up at Caesar, who said that. And he says, well, the powers of the seas and of the south wind protect those who fall under their tutelage. When the powers were invoked, I felt the presence of my kin and brought those that they carry in their hearts with them.
Jarrell will pipe up. Would it only be us that you brought with them? Could he have brought another along that wasn't supposed to join? Just curious if Ebenezer's here or not.
Well, it appears Ebenezer can control remotely in many places. I would imagine there's a possibility that we have to entertain his presence is here, or at least is aware of this place.
Does Caesar answer?
He says, I wouldn't have brought anyone that you did not hold dear to you. And it's only for those of my kin that this would apply to.
You spoke that you were not really familiar with the concept of time. Do you believe that if you were to return us to our plane of origin, that time will continue to expend during this whole conversation, or could we return theoretically in the exact same position at the exact same moment?
Here you exist in all times and all spaces.
How about that, Captain?
To bring you back, I suppose it would... Well, no one's really ever made it here to ask me before.
Do you think he could place us freed surrounding Ebenezer? I don't know what we want.
Zero pipes up. Do we necessarily have to go back? Or should we go somewhere further on?
The entire summit is still
I would
under attack.
Yeah, I would assume Tessa would want to go back and fight with her people.
Jabril, would it be possible for you to try to contact Valen from this place?
Jarrell will put on the helmet immediately. Yeah.
Sure.
And
What do
to his
you say or think?
The typical Valen, are you there?
Jarrell, I can hear you so much more clearly.
We seem to have surpassed the material plane. Look at that.
Ah, then you are well on your way to your path of ascension. However, how did you do that so fast?
It was with the help of Caesar Southwind. We are in his realm.
Ah, yes. A lesser deity of the elements of wind and water. Excuse me. And you hear the sounds of like trumpets blaring and magic and battle and things happening. And she says, "Sorry."
Just explosions and fireball.
Oh God, don't look at explosions.
Right.
And she says, "If you are to ascend, you must travel further. Deeper. You must transcend that which is celestial and astral. You must transcend the borders of material and elemental. The only way to do this is through the planar vortex.
Jarrell will turn to the group and say, "She recommends we go further."
How do we have any control over these vortexes? I mean, isn't this kind of like a one-way trip?
Seeing as how this is the first time, and Caesar kind of like pipes up, seeing as how this is the first time that any of my kin has successfully managed to visit me, which I am very grateful for. You look great, by the way. And he looks at you and Tessa. He says, I don't know. I am but a humble lord of an elemental domain. Now, again, Jarrell, your conversation with Valen is one way, right? Like,
yeah, that's why I told them what she told me. Jarrell will turn to Zero. I'm still trying to understand this realm. Is it possible that we go forward and can then place ourselves in the prior space and time after, where we are needed once more? He's hoping that Zero kind of connects what Jarrell's kind of babbling, but like he's hoping that we can go further into the vortex to do what we need to do. Maybe even send Tessa back, and then we could go back to that exact spot in time to save the day again. After I become a god. After I become a god, then we could definitely do it. Right. Especially if this whole like space-time thing is like in question while you're in the vortex.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone who would have or potentially have any knowledge of, the inner and outer planes, would like to make me like a history or an arcana check, I'll allow that.
Sure, I'll make an arcana check.
I could also make a history check, I think.
17 plus 6 will be a 23 for arcana.
Really good.
Similar to how Tabi had aged dramatically in a short period of time when he was traveling through multiple planes of 31 squared. The passage of time in the plane, in the outer planes and the inner planes, works differently than on the prime material plane. So, based on, your observations already with like Tabi's aging process and whatnot, you would expect that time here passes slower than it does on the prime material. There may even be ways to manipulate, things like that, right? But then you're talking about temporal magic, where you're talking about going back in time. Dr. Hines was trying, was one of the really only experts in that field, and he was potentially overrun by the undead, but you don't really know. He did some crazy magic and made some big explosions, and you never really saw or confirmed that he was dead. But that's the only person you've ever met in your life who's ever known how to fuck with time, even a little bit.
Now, I'm not a very good chronometrician. I never really had time for those kinds of studies.
That's a word.
But I would say that there's going to be a temporal flux shift between what you would normally see on a dynamanometron versus what you might find on other less specialized pieces of equipment. And it's going to say a lot of things, and it's also not going to say several other things. And there's a cross inference that can be made here that essentially says that it's entirely possible, that it's plausible, that it's not out of the question that we could come back at a time similar to when we went in, or in a time within several margins for error just afterwards, which may or may not be from 1 nanosecond to 4 days.
Oaken is a true scientist of the Omega Project.
A man with many hats, yes. Caesar will pipe up and says, I can bestow upon you the power to summon the vortex, but I worry that your fragile mortal form could barely handle it.
He's speaking to Quinn, right?
Yes. Or just to all of you, really.
Mm-hmm.
We would all be able to control it, or at least try.
No.
Just Quinn.
Only those who possess, deep powers. And among you, I see two
Jarrell
candidates,
is more
honestly.
intrigued by
Right.
that.
I see Quinn, yeah, and Tessa. And actually, he looks up and down. This strange construct seems to possess certain physiological traits that could potentially survive such magic. And he points at Zero.
You know, Captain, I don't think we could have any bigger of a target on our back as it is.
Tessa says, bestow some power to me. I see your quest, brother, and I see what lies before you. But I must fight with my people. I am not the type of leader to abandon them. Caesar says, very well. I may bestow a lesser power to you if you mean only to travel back to the material plane. That is a far easier task. But yes, to travel deeper would require tremendous bravery.
Jarrell's so brave.
So brave. So brave.
So brave.
Just so
Really cannot be
brave.
scared.
So is the question here at this point, do we go deeper and risk the lives of perhaps Hedrick, Jarrell, and Boris?
No, it's more like you can go deeper,
Is
but
that the-
whoever
is
is
that-
but whoever is summoning the power to do that, to traverse the planes,
You're at the
would
highest risk.
be, under probably great stress physically and metaphysically based on just the amount of power that you would need to summon or use. It could potentially have adverse effects on your mortal being. Potentially. And Caesar says, again, we've never tried this before. I'm even curious to see if it works.
If I were to channel this, then would that be a stable conduit for the rest to pass through?
Perhaps.
Boris goes to check to see if is still in the hold.
A ref. You do hold him in your heart.
Boris picks up and holds him up in the air towards Caesar.
Is Hans and the
Said-
dragons in there too?
What about this construct?
Those are two very important questions that both of you asked. There in different ways. And John, I mean, do you love your squire? Do you have like an actual do you feel like you actually have like a good relationship with your squire? Like, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
even love, but like
I mean,
do you
Jarrell's a
have
dick.
compassion and care for him?
Jarrell's a dick, but Hans is the closest thing he has to a son, so.
Okay. Then Hans is there, the dragons are not.
Okay. Oh no. That's gonna be bad for everyone.
Well, this is going to end one of several different ways.
Well, the ice dragons, fires will be out when we get back. It's fine. It's fine.
And the rest of the Oberstar crew?
Yeah, like things were
Also not here.
things were already bad there. Unleashing dragons on it is going to do what? It was already bad. It was already cataclysmically bad.
Dragonlings.
We accidentally stole a dragon mama.
Dragonling. They're still dragons. We're just arguing about degree at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just try to get Hans back as quick as we can so that the ship doesn't explode with freeze, whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to say that your squire is along with you now on the rest of this adventure, and you alone are responsible for his well-being, wherever this takes you.
Right.
Just for potential records purposes, which people, which characters that are not us are on this ship? Like, is you in the crow's nest still, for example?
You know,
that's good to know. Murph.
I'm gonna say no. It would have only been Dedu on the ship, because he likes being in the crow's nest. He's also not here.
He is not here. Okay. I just wanted to see who, make sure there was a list of who was available for party select if that was going to be a thing.
I'm not sure if we could say that Quinn loves Dedu enough, or anybody in this group loves Dedu enough to bring him with.
No, that's horrible.
I mean, it's not that they don't care about him. It's just that as far as
hold them in their hearts.
We sustain ourselves on horribleness energy, so that's fine.
But also, just as an aside, right? That gives a fun option for if at any point in time we are short people or need to do some kind of quote unquote intern's adventure, we can check back in on what's happening in real time.
Right.
On the prime material plane. But yes, no, it is just... and you know who else is here, though? Is Dilbertrum.
How did he make it in?
We forgot he was there.
He's not here.
No, I'm just kidding. You actually don't care about him at all, so no, he is not.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Not in
That
this
would have been
one.
the freaky thing, how the fuck did you get here? No, no.
That's the biggest mystery of all.
Ironically, by
Yeah.
respecting his wishes, we made him unable to do his job.
Yeah, he's probably real happy about that.
He's probably left behind in the middle of a horrible battle. We're just gone.
And we are on the ship. So the ship matters.
So he's alone
They do
in
not.
the water next to a pissed off demigod.
And Dedu.
Yes.
Between Dedu and a pissed off demigod.
I'm sorry. So I just, which among you, I guess, would like to take? Oh, yeah, you said right. I'm sorry. And Boris held up.
Yep, I'm
Correct?
expectantly hoping that my puppy will become a sea god here.
Or more of a temporal field generator, essentially a chaotic temporal field generator.
In my head, my puppy is a sea god, if this works.
I see. Caesar now inspects this tiny mechanical construct and says, this does possess some, albeit far fewer, of the same physiological qualities that your other mechanical friend has. I could put it in that thing, but I don't know what would happen. It's your call.
Are you willing
I
to blow
suppose.
up your puppy?
To make it a sea god?
That's not a win-win. That is not a win-win.
Just looks up, at the towering, like demigod and just says, a rough.
You pushed the chaos button last episode. Are we going to dare to let you push the chaos button again this episode?
Honestly, I think
Boris
we should have
turns
Zero
to
do it.
zero, actually.
Because as an incipient DM, I'm all about watching chaos buttons being pushed.
Boris turns to Zero and asks, Zero, what do you think? Can he handle it? and then turns towards her and goes, "Can you handle it? Can you?"
Oh, rough. Oh, rough.
Well, how accurate of an idea do you have of where you're trying to go? Let me put it to you this way. Is accuracy important to you in any way, shape, or form in your incipient travel to another plane?
To me, I'm just going wherever you guys
She's
want.
the wrong one.
Okay, well, let's make this an exclusive. More of a, I don't know, what's the opposite of the royal you? The everybody you. The guy can put this out to a poll.
Zero, I would
Yins.
trust you infinitely more than her puppy.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's very limited in its comprehensive or expressive abilities. I wouldn't trust this puppy to know which plane or travel route to take any more than I would trust a snail to tell me how to climb a mountain.
Oh, rough. Oh, rough.
Let me put it to you this way. Accuracy is my stock in trade. I'll get you where you're going, and I will catch up to you when I can.
Gyrella has complete faith in Zero for sure.
Surely,
Boris is still heavily debating Puppy Sea God.
Of course you are.
Do we have the option to make multiple sea gods here?
I am already expending some power for my other kin here, Tessa, to go back to where she belongs and needs to be. Only one other among you can be bestowed with such power. I, again, have my limits.
Boris turns back to the rest of the party and says, "While I love the idea of this being I'm not sure it's the best idea you guys have ever had." And brings back to the hole.
Oh, you made it their idea.
was it reverse Quinn?
Yeah.
She reverse Quinn does.
She is wearing his clothes still, after all.
Very smelly at this point.
The
Privatized
anti-captain.
gains, nationalized losses.
Well,
I vote Zero.
Yeah, as far as I know, you all are destined for great things, and well, me and Boris are just here to tag along. I mean, giddy up.
all right then.
John
you
knows
see-
that's not true, but Jarrell agrees.
You see Caesar reach below the seas now with his massive arms, and he pulls up a bident, right? And it almost looks like a gigantic tuning fork, but with pointy ends.
Like a
And he,
grilling fork.
Yes,
Yeah.
he is 2/3 of a Poseidon.
Yeah. And he holds it up and he places a finger on it and just kind of gives it a tap, and you see him you see the two points vibrate, and then he points the bident at Zero, and you see you feel the wind start to swirl, right? And you see that in the endless and sunless sky above you, clouds form out of nowhere and start to kind of concentrate over the Overstar. And a massive streak of lightning just blasts down and strikes Zero, filling you with immense energy. You know how okay, if you ever watched any of the Iron Man films, right? You start juicing the suit up with electricity, it starts overcharging, right? You're starting to feel that kind of vibe. Whatever magic normally courses through you, for your general operations, is now surging at 300%.
all of the wood panels explode outward off of Zero, and he is just a brass frame at the moment.
And he says, all you need to do now is focus your energy towards a direction and, well, fire.
I think I can manage that.
Wait a minute, before we disembark,
Blam!
Yeah! Blam, he says.
Right mid-sentence.
I would be remiss.
He
If,
said blam. He said blam.
Fuck.
So you are going to be remiss.
So this massive surge of energy explodes out from Zero. And it's like you almost see like this beam of light kind of like come out from his chest. And it just like creates this it just fills the space now with light. And all of you are just sucked in. And you feel your bodies just like moving at an incredible speed, even though you are not moving any part of yourself. You can see this stream of colors, and like you just hear this sound of like rushing, not rushing air, but just but all these this sound of like, I don't know, almost like current of some kind, like almost like electrical current or magical current. Something is it's just buzzing and rushing. And that's what we're going to call this episode of the Hapless Heroes podcast.
Ah!
That's exciting.
Thank you
Hey,
all
Quinn, you're not dead.
so much.
I know.
He's not dead. He's not dead. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I've had a blast on this particular story arc, and I wanted to leave Dave with the creative challenge of, well, a planar adventure. I think that this sets us up for some very interesting things. Now, you might be thinking to yourselves, dear audience, wait, Fran, if you're returning to the tables of player, how in the hell is Felix going to get there? Well, my dear audience, that is a question we will answer next week on the Hapless Heroes podcast. In the meantime, if you like us, you can find us on the internet. We're on such places as Twitter and Instagram at Hapless Heroes, or Facebook, Reddit. Just look for Hapless Heroes Podcast. Those places really just have sticky posts with links that will guide you to our Discord server, which is really where we meet with our audience and socialize most often. It's also a great community of like-minded people, of all our cast members, beautiful community members and fellow listeners, and each all sharing different stories and pictures and all the cool, fun stuff that you can find with a cool, great community of nerds. I would encourage you to join. It's a great time, and we'll do our best. We always do our best to make sure that we don't put spoilers in the episode talk channel without tagging them first. Please don't be afraid. Come on and say hi. But if you really like us, you can also leave us a 5-star review on the podcast service of your choice. Really helps, just like seeing all the wonderful things you have to say about us. Hell, you can even just email us at haplessheroes@gmail.com. Say some nice things. We'll say some nice things back to you on the air. It's going to be a great time. We really love hearing from you. It just makes us happy and feel all warm and fuzzy and make us want to keep making the best show we possibly can for you. Now, if you really, really like us, donate to our Patreon, maybe. It's just patreon.com/haplessheroes. We got a multitude of rewards that we are constantly adding to, everything from bloopers, behind the scenes audio. Phil's got some Hedrick acapella tracks on there. We occasionally even schedule game nights with our patrons where we'll play Jackbox games, and I'll host it on our Discord server and things like that. So we're always trying to find more and more ways to give back to you, because you've given so much to us, and we just deeply appreciate all of it.
Hedrick desperately needs your interplanar support, and he'd be happy to entertain you for such.
Interplanar support sounds like something NPR asks for.
I am once again asking for your interplanar support.
Okay, if you really, really, really love us, Sally Field and the whole deal. Break into Ben and Jerry's in Vermont.
So
And
not
in the-
Ben and Jerry's, but the Ben and Jerry's.
The Ben and Jerry's. And where they are coming up with a new ice cream flavor, you will replace all of their research with hapless heroes. I'm trying to think of like a good flavor.
Yeah, just flavors named after
Come
all
up
of our
with a good
characters.
flavor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Southwind,
Sorbet.
cookie dough.
yeah. Dilbertram's
Southwind
double
sorbet.
chocolate
I like
delight.
that. I love it.
Right.
It should be salted caramel because of the salt of the ocean.
Yeah.
Zero zebra stripes. I don't know.
I'd like to be Boris Berry.
Boris Berry.
yes.
I love it. So come up with a flavor that gives just a great homage to the hapless heroes, and push it. Like, just get it done without any of their help. Just create the flavor, put all the ingredients into a big batch, and then process and produce it. Send it out to all the stores, and we'll love you after that.
Yeah, and wow the world with the whimsical flavors of the Hapless Heroes podcast in ice cream form. Love it. Well, there's nothing left
just
to
really
do
want
but
ice cream.
outro this wonderful cast for you for my last time as a DM for a little bit. So I'm going to get started on my virtual right with John as Lord Jarrell the Light,
Until next time.
Phil as Hedrick the Entertainer,
Man, I wish I could have done a number for that Caesar back there. What an audience. What an audience.
Nicole as Boris the Butcher,
I'm sorry, maybe next time we meet a demigod.
Mike as Lord and Captain Quinn Southwind,
I'm actually contemplating mixing 2 ice cream flavors, Southwind sorbet and Boris Berry, and that just sounds delicious.
and Dave as Zero, Valen's Avatar of War.
See you next time you're on the material planes.
And I'm Francesco, signing off as DM. Next week, we welcome Dave as our returning storyteller. We'll see what happens on this planar adventure. Ooh.
I'm a
Bye-bye.
material
I'm a little
girl
scared.
on a
Dave's the main
material
one.
plane.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.